Frank Dietrich here, everyone. This is a session that's tailored a little bit differently than the material you saw before. The journey that we've been on started, Jesus, it feels like 1,000 years ago. I guess it's been a month or 6 weeks maybe. Pulling together best practices for accommodations, which is the focus today, along with food and beverage, as I said, retail, and then attractions and entertainment. So we've issued and published both the food and beverage as well as restaurant. Those were part of the county's 111-page submission that went to Albany that's helped get us to where we are. We're getting a lot of credit, actually, interestingly, statewide for the effort that's going on here regionally. All the input from everyone and everything's played a lot into helping us move into phase one, as you know, where we stand today. So all good news. Now it's time to get real. The holidays weekends upon us. Reservations are starting to come in, not where they should be, but better than where they were a month ago. And the reality check's going to be right in front of us. And getting ready with your employees, getting ready with your practices, and getting ready with your clients is going to be a critical next step here. I was on a call with the county this morning. There's a lot of anxiety about how well we're going to execute. They're seeing too many people congregating closely together. They're seeing people grabbing a drink to go and then sitting at the seating outside of a restaurant, for example, and those are all warning signs inside the county. So a big element of the theme here is going to be we have to execute especially sharp. We have to lead by example with our teams and with ourselves. And then additionally, we have to help guide our guests through the proper way to behave in today's world with regard to social distancing and face coverings in particular. And if we're successful at that, we'll be okay. If we're not, we could become the poster child in New York for why we shouldn't have opened when we did. So Sam Luciano's on the line here. Sam's at the Fort William Henry. He's the president of the Fort William Henry Company, which is a series of businesses. He's an outstanding expert at everything we're going to talk about. He's going to take us on a little bit of a deeper dive with regard to the best practices and how we should be implementing them across the board. And then backing up Sam is Dave Mentor. Dave's with the Country Inn and Suites, Scotty's, and 4 other businesses in the area. He's been leading the charge on the supplies and supplier effort that we have underway to try to help everyone at least know where to go get things. And Dave will give us an update with that. And on the backside of that, some Q&A, as Gina said, that'll be moderated. And then time permitting, we can have a general discussion about where we are. So I want to thank everyone for joining, and Sam, over to you.
Thanks, Frank. Gina, do you want to start the PowerPoint at this point? And we'll go to slide, there we go. Let's go to slide number 2 and we'll get into the agenda. So Frank gave a good welcome to everybody. I'm going to just slide up to my PowerPoint because it's a little off the screen, Gina, with the bodies that are here. So we'd like to start out explaining New York State, the region, and the phases. I already heard some misconceptions that are taking place. We'd like to clear anything up. The questions that you might have on opening, what's open, what's not opening, what's allowed, what's not allowed as we go through this. We want to talk to you about a survey that went out for Warren County and share some of the results, because the survey really helped craft a lot of what you're seeing in the best practices. And then we'll share some of the best practices. I'm not going to read every detail, minute point by minute point. I will cover the topics though. We put together as a team best practices, and then I incorporated them into many different resources that are out there. American Hotel and Motel Association, NISHDA, CDC, quite a few of them wanted to craft the best practices. And then I'm going to turn over to Dave Mentor, who'll talk about all the PPEs, the best place to buy. Dave's reached out with his team on pricing and on who has supplies available. And then we'll leave it with questions and answers. Gina, if you could open mics, if anybody has any questions as we go along and catch a topic, it's okay to address it as we go along here. We got about an hour, and I think we can whip through everything. So first thing is the group that put it together. Some of these have animations. Gina, so you can hit the enter button on that. So this is the list of the task force, and there's more work that has been done. These slides are a couple of days old anyway. But you can see on the left side, Tom Gay, myself, Kathy Munsell, Frank Dietrich, Laura, Vinny, and all the way down, Rebecca from Six Flags, Tyler from the Queensbury Hotel, Gary, RV Park, Dave, of course, came together on a series of meetings to craft none of the slides you're seeing, but also working with the county and Mike Wild and Gene and Joanne as well. Next slide, Gina. So let's talk about New York State. You can open up your mics if you have questions on this. So this slide is as of the 18th. So as of Monday, you can see that Warren County is in the region of the Capital District. So we fall into those guidelines. As you know, yesterday we were able to open up, and we are opening up in phase 1. Gina, next slide, and we'll explain the phases. So phase 1 will allow construction, manufacturing, wholesale, supply chains, businesses to reopen. Let me get mine, it's got off. Curbside, in-store pickup and drop off. Phase 1 retail categories include clothing and shoes, electronics, appliances, mail order, jewelry, luggage, sporting goods, and many others, blah, blah, blah. Agriculture, forestry, fishing, and hunting businesses can also resume, as can landscape garden businesses, drive-in movies, and low-risk recreational activities. After 2 weeks, the state and regional offices will evaluate the outcomes, and reopening will decide then whether or not to move on to the next phase. One misconception is hotels were deemed essential from day 1. Hotels can be open fully. There is no capacity, half capacity, 25% restrictions on the hotels. There is also no policing of whether it's a transient guest or a medical guest. Hotels can be open fully, and as well as bed and breakfast. Okay. So originally they had hotels and lodging facilities in phase 3, but I'll get to that in a minute, but they've been a different avenue with that. So phase 2, if we get through the next 2 weeks with no issues, this will allow a wider region of businesses, including storefront retailers, professional services, finance and insurance, administrative support, real estate, rental leasing. Under the current guidelines, no regional eligible will begin phase 2 until at least May 30th. Phase 3 will focus on the hospitality industry, allowing restaurants and other food service business to reopen dine-in service, as well as hotels, talking about the food, which already considered essential business and are allowed to serve overnight guests. But this phase will likely mean that they'll be able to reopen their dine-in restaurants, spas, and gyms. So right now, like restaurants, if you own a restaurant in a hotel, you're allowed to do 3 things: curbside service, takeout, and delivery. So phase 3 would open that up to dine-in. Phase 4, the final phase, will allow schools, arts and entertainment, recreation businesses to reopen, including theaters, movie theaters, and other entertainment venues, as well as museums and artistic institutions. No matter what school, our schools remain closed for the remainder of the academic year. Any questions on the phases? Gina, next slide. So the Warren County posted a survey. It's been out a couple of weeks now. And Gina, you can hit the next one. We'll start with question number 1 here. So there were about 8 questions that were crafted that we went over as a team. We were trying to get very specific information from them. We're trying to decide at what levels are going to come this year, when they were going to come, what were they looking for when they came here. You can see on the top of these slides how many people answered the question. Tens of thousands went out, and we got a pretty good sampling back. So the first question was, once restrictions on travel are lifted, when do you plan on taking a vacation? Slide down to mine. And not surprisingly, May and June was going to be really slow, and this was before really the word got out that they moved to Americade. The people came back and they said, we'll come in July, we'll come in August, and we'll come in the fall. 15% said we're not taking a vacation this year as these came in. Those answers are the many questions for us. Were reservations going to gear up? When were they going to gear up? What you're not seeing on these slides are the comments that followed. And the comments really told even a bigger story. What they said is, we want to come, we want to see safety in place. And when those measures come in or when a vaccine comes in, then we will begin to travel more. But the summer looks like it can be strong depending how this plays out. Next slide, Gina. What activities would you participate in if social distance requirements remain in place? Gina, can you go to the next slide too? Because the data is there. So these are the criteria. The top 5, I put arrows next to. So the question again was, what activities would you like to participate if social distancing remains in place? They would like to come up and go hiking. They would like to go canoeing. They would like to go swimming in the lake. They'd like to visit outdoor parks. And they, of course, would like to eat and go to restaurants. And the comments came back, people are really looking for outdoor safe activities to do. Gina, next slide. So which, if any of the following, would concern you about swimming in the pool or visiting the public beach? Difficulty in remaining with social distance was number 1 at 61%. Swimming in shared open waters, 32%. Sharing community facilities, of course, 68%. And confidence in the sanitation at 61%. They want to make sure that they are being maintained and clean, that the chairs are being wiped down with some type of disinfectant. Next slide, Gina. Your safety is the highest priority. Which safety measures would you like to see in place when you vacation in Lake George? The standard ones that everybody's been talking about: hand sanitizing, chemical-based disinfecting, and social distancing. The personal protection gear, there were a lot of interesting comments. Although many people said they wouldn't have a problem with wearing masks, about 80%, there were many comments on the masks themselves. And we believe as you open up, you may have some interaction with guests that may not want to wear a mask. And Frank and I were talking earlier, we've had it at the Fort William Henry already. And there's a fine line between hospitality and getting a bad TripAdvisor review. And so the people that handle those rebellious guests for many, many reasons should be trained or at least turned over to a manager, somebody who has the temperament to be able, these guests that really don't want to follow some of the rules. Gina, next one.
Hey, Sam.
Yeah.
Sam, this is Amanda from the chamber. I've just been monitoring the chat, and there are a couple questions here, and one of them, I'm not sure if you want to answer this now or wait till later, but somebody was asking, what date do we expect phase 3 to begin?
Gina, you can probably open up, but as my understanding is, it's 2 weeks, 2 weeks, 2 weeks. So if we do everything right now, in 2 weeks, we can open up phase 2. Everything right, another 2 weeks, which puts us about mid-June. And then phase 4 would be the end of June, maybe even early July. Gina, did I get that right? Or Frank? Frank, there you go.
Yeah. I'm sorry, I was muted. Yeah, that's the understanding. That's how the governors aligned it. You know, it certainly, some things may go faster based on how we do, but for the moment, we're working against the current rule set, which is 2 weeks per phase.
And Frank, I think it's if you want to clear up that if we have a setback, we're not going backwards. We don't start over.
That's true. Yeah, at the county level, there's a daily meeting. It's called a control room meeting, 2 p.m. Ryan Moore from the county administrator, and Frank Thomas, who's the Board of Supervisors chairperson, are on that call with the Capital Region. They review the results. There's 7 criteria that the governor defined. They review those results to measure where we stand as a region. Today we're green. If we were to fall back for some reason, we'll move to a yellow or amber state, if you will. And the expectation is you go to work to find out what's happening, why, you trap it, you control it, and you keep moving. And then you can move from a yellow or amber state to green. If you fail, then you drop back to red. And, you know, absolutely critical thing here for everyone on this call, you know, if we have to go back into a pause, you know, our ability to rally and come back online for our guests this season will be significantly impacted. So I think Sam said it, once we move forward, we got to be sharp and stay moving that way.
If we can stick with the 2 weeks with the starting point of today, phase 2 would open up June 3rd, phase 3 would be June 17th, and July 1st would be phase 4.
And have you heard when outdoor seating, like what phase that outdoor seating for restaurants would fit into?
Amanda, it's Frank. Why don't we hold that one for the end for Q&A? Because
Okay.
that's something that Misty asked, and that's a bigger discussion.
Okay, sounds good. Thank you.
Not as simple as just a date. Okay.
So Gina, I think we're on question 7. So let me get there with you. So our restaurants and lodging properties are currently offering takeout, curbside, room service, and grab only. Will these options satisfy your dining needs? We're really happy to see this. Over 70% said yes, that's fine. And the comments came back, as long as it's good food and quality food, there's no problem. They understand what we're in. They've been through the whole pandemic with us, so they're not concerned about that. And the last question, question number 8, Gina, really gets into meat and potatoes. And this is, please rank the below criteria from least to most important and when deciding to take a vacation this year. In other words, when you're coming up and you're deciding to take you want to take a vacation this year, what's most important to you? Safety measures in place, 61% in the number 1 position, by far are-ranked everything else. So they were really telling us, look, we want safety measures in place and we'll travel. And that really is the reason why we put this whole seminar together and have been talking as a team, is we wanted to get everybody in the county understanding at least the base minimums of what we should do as a county and market as what we're doing as a county to screen the message that this is a safe environment for you to come on vacation. We will take care of your families. Gina, next slide. So best practices. Next slide. So many of you, and these, Gina, are animation, so if you hit them one at a time here. So we'll start with the employees. What are we doing to keep our employees safe? Some of the survey comments came back, many of them, that the guests were as concerned about the safety of our employees as they were themselves. Many have been coming up for years. They know the employees at the different lodging establishments very well, and they want to see their well-being. And again, Gina, I'm going to slide over to my PowerPoint because with the pictures, it's cut off on the other end here. So employees, guest health concerns. Employees should be given clear instructions to report all presumed cases of COVID-19 on the property of New York State Health Department. That's a given. Employees should be instructed to contact a manager if they notice a coworker with a cough or shortness of breath or showing any symptoms. Employees and guests who are exhibiting any symptoms of COVID-19 while at the property should be instructed to notify the manager immediately. And if an employee has tested for COVID-19, consider the employee has worked close proximity. You'll have a legal obligation to inform employees if they have been exposed to COVID-19. Sanitize all areas that the employee has worked at, and it is recommended that you use a contact tracing form for every employee every day. We have copies of that if anybody needs those. Gina, next slide, or next tab. Taking temperatures. I'll just talk about this and rather read all these. Taking temperatures is really up to you as a property. If you intend on taking guest temperatures, that gets into the privacy of a guest. You may have some resistance on that. We are recommending that you take your employees' temperature, every employee, as they come on to work. Points of entry should be limited to allow non-invasive temperature checks, and employees who are not feeling well should be instructed to stay home. Symptomatic guest, instruct staff to notify management if they see a guest who is displaying symptoms. Again, this is a delicate area. How do you handle the guest? You want to inform the guest that you'd like to accommodate them, or you have health concerns, encourage them to go to the nearest medical facility. You want to refund them if they have a reservation deposit. You want to ensure that there's a second staff present when dealing with a guest if the check-in is denied. Next slide, Gina. Signage, back of the house and throughout the property, there should be signage reminding employees to wear proper PPEs. Hand washing is a responsibility of the employees. Hygiene, frequent hand washing with soap is vital to help combat the virus. Employees should wash their hands. Sorry, get to my slide. These are cut off on me. The employee should wash their hands and sanitize when the sink is not available every 60 minutes, every hour on the hour, or as they touch things that will come in contact with guests and other employees. Personal protection equipment, appropriate PPE should be worn by all employees based on their role and responsibilities, and adhere to the New York State and local regulations and guidance. Daily pre-shift and timing, employees' pre-shift meetings should be conducted virtually or in areas to allow them for appropriate physical distancing between employees. Larger departments should stagger employees' arrival times and minimize traffic in the back of the house areas. Physical distancing, Gina, I'll pass because we're going to cover that again a little later down the road. The guest journey. Visitors may have their temperatures, again, at your discretion, taken when they arrive. If a property has an elevator, limited to immediate family members and any non-family members, depending on the size of your elevator, you should cap it about 2 per car. Whenever possible, guests entering and exiting should use separate doors. You need to provide signage to make this happen. And guests are currently required to wear face coverings when in public. I should have started this with a preface. These things are what we're facing right now. Some of these things can and probably will change as the phases open up. Guests are currently required to wear face coverings and in public stay outside the perimeter of 6 feet. Guests should be advised to practice physical distancing by standing at least 6 feet from the other groups. Sorry, gotta switch slides here. Signage, appropriate signage should also be prominently displayed, outlining proper mask use and current physical distancing practices throughout the property. We recommend you put these at all entrances. Dining, I won't cover, Frank, because we're gonna do something separate on that. So Gina, we go to the next slide on this. Cleaning protocol. Public spaces. This is from the AHLA. Cleaning and disinfecting shall be frequent. We recommend multiple times. Therefore, we're doing it every hour with an emphasis on frequently contact hard non-porous surface, including but not limited to front desk check-in, counters, bell tops, elevators, buttons, etc., door handles, ATMs, vending machines. Guest room cleaning and disinfecting protocols require that particular attention be paid to high-touch areas. Non-porous items such as television, remotes, toilets, handles, doors, and furniture handles, nightstands, telephones, all the high-touch areas. Back of the house, cleaning and disinfecting of all high-touch areas shall occur in accordance with the CDC guidelines, including at least twice a day in the high-traffic areas. Pools and beaches, guests are responsible for self-cleaning prior to use. Advise the use of showers and sanitizing material provided by the property. We're also recommending that you do disinfect the pool chairs after every guest use if you can get out there, or at least on a frequency basis. Laundry, linens, towels, and laundry shall be washed in accordance with CDC guidelines, including washing items as appropriate in accordance with the manufacturer instructions. Where possible, launder items using warmest possible water permissible, and the settings, and dry items completely. Heat will kill the coronavirus. Dirty linen shall be bagged separately. Food service, again, we'll cover in another seminar. More on physical distancing. Again, it's 6 feet away. I don't think I need it. It's more of the same. 6 feet away, 6 feet, markings on the floor. So Dave, I'll turn it over to you on where to buy the PPEs and the safety things we talked about. Dave Mentor, Mike.
Dave, you might be muted.
I am. There we go. Thanks, Sam. From the outset, we realized that supplies were going to be an issue here. So what we wanted to do was create some kind of a resource that would make it a little more feasible for people to get out and get this stuff, because especially properties that haven't been open and struggling with this for the past few months. So I've been working with Tyler Herrick at Spruce Hospitality and Alicia Madison, actually, at the Country Inn and Suites. And what we did is initially we wanted to come up with a full vendor guide that had products as well as contact information and pricing, just to kind of coordinate all that and make it an easy process to locate stuff and access it. What we found happening, though, is that the suppliers really had very little control over their supply chain. They couldn't control when they got product and even where it went. Came and went so fast that they were, before they filled their orders, they'd be out looking for more product. So it's been a really fluid situation. What we have done is we've put together this guide, and this is it lists distributors, and it lists products in many cases, and actually in a few cases there's still pricing in there. But most of the distributors kind of shied away from that. We started out with a lot of pricing, but they all shied away from that because of the lack of control that they have over it. So we have this guide, which is still a pretty good tool. It's got a lot of vendors, larger national guys, more regional vendors, and then even some local vendors for some of the things like sanitizers and face masks and that kind of thing. The availability, a lot of them list everything, a lot of items, and it looks on the surface like this is going to be great, but you'll get an order in, they've got the product, and then a week later you find out it's been back ordered, and then it's 3 weeks later. So multiple distributors is really the key here. So having a lot of people in the mix and then finding the one who's got the product is really the only way to be efficient with this. So what we've done is we've created this product, or this list rather, and many of you have probably seen it. Ceramanics has a page that actually it's listed on the Facebook page that she created, which is Lake George Tourism Business Owners. And if you're not a member of that, if you're not part of that page, you should join it, because that's a great source for information, and it'll be accessible through there. The Tourism Commission Vendors Guide has local and it has national vendors on there, and it includes everything from PPE to cleaning products, hand sanitizing products, masks, and it's pretty fluid. Masks right now are much more available than they were in the past. Hand sanitizer is a real pinch point at this point. So we located a couple local vendors who have it and sell it, and it's really, super sanitizing stuff. It works really well. But to make this thing active, we've been trying to figure out how to really make it work for people. And where we are right now is that Alicia has volunteered to use emails to notify people who are participating in this of availability changes. The vendors were hesitant to do a consistent update on what they had available and did not have available. But we still get a lot of anecdotal information and some stuff from vendors and some stuff from just people in the community of what's available and where. So she's going to put a link, I believe, on the Facebook page, or request that people contact her, and she will add them to the list. And I'm not sure if, Alicia, if you're still here, if you didn't have to run away, is that what the plan is?
Yes, I'm still here. Can you guys hear me?
There we go. Yep, I can hear
Great.
you.
So I think what I was really looking to do is just make myself available for anyone who is really looking to lock down face masks or hand sanitizer. And like Dave had said, the vendors were a little reluctant to give me updates. However, we've got different options with different vendors. WB Mason, they will actually have their lead time on their website when you are looking for products. So that was a great tool Steve Leland had shared with us. My hope was that I could capture once a week just an email blast of what I know is available right now to order. Like Dave said, either from the vendors or locally, just us communicating. So if you would like to receive those emails, the email, I'll post it on Facebook as well, but I have it down here in the bottom right of the screen, CX_QUNY@Country Inn. I'm thinking Thursday feels like a good date. I could send that out weekly. It would give me time to touch base all week, and then you could get your orders in on Thursday for the end of the week.
Okay, thanks, Alicia. So that's in a nutshell where we are with it. I'd recommend you just go look through this, and any questions or comments or improvements that you have that we could make to it, and so it'd be more valuable to people. We'd appreciate it. This will change probably on a weekly basis as we add and vendors. We've always got a queue of vendors that we're going to put into it also. It looks like we're going to settle down to about once a week that we update this, because we're going to be relying on the Facebook page for people with specific urgencies and real acute needs and that kind of thing. And as a community, we should be able to help out with a lot of those needs. So that's where we are on it right now.
And if I could just say one more thing, this is Alicia again. Also, in addition to the actual items themselves, the products, the PPE, all of those things, I've been able to find some great resources online that are just printable. From the CDC, Adirondack Roofed was another great one as well. So I'm happy to share all of that information too. So if you're looking for some signage, please let me know, and I'm happy to pass on what I've found. Thank you.
Okay, good. That's it. Over to you, Frank.
You're on mute, Frank.
Yeah, sorry. I'm not practiced at being muted, shockingly. So thanks for the update, Sam and Dave. A lot of work going on here, folks, if you haven't noticed, and I appreciate it. And Alicia at the Country Inn and Suites raised her hand here and is working exceptionally hard on figuring out how to put together a resource kit that all of you can use to try to find products that you might not be able to get otherwise if you don't have relationships with these suppliers. If you do run into any roadblocks there, I think Dave and Elise should be happy to help. Obviously, I would, to try to open doors for you that you might not have opened already. I think a very positive message and through all of this is watching all the businesses in this community come together to try to help. A lot of local suppliers, Springbrook Distillery, for example, and the Adirondack Brewery put down their businesses and have started to make alcohol that you can use for hand sanitizing purposes and other cleaning reasons. They're doing that for the community, and they're discounting their prices locally to try to help. And you'd find their names and contact numbers in the material that Dave and Alicia and the rest of the sourcing team have put together here. So really, really significant stuff. Before we jump to Q&A, I just wanted to try to highlight for everybody what I think some of the key points are here coming out of the best practices, as Sam touched on. And Gina, you can leave that slide there. That's be a good segue. The key points. Communication is absolutely critical here, everybody. You have to be communicating to your team what you expect of them. I've been going through it every day on our 4 properties, and it doesn't sink in quickly. Your staff's not going to be used to being socially distant. They're not going to be used to being in face coverings, and it takes a while to get used to it. So practice is going to help a lot here. It's also going to require some, better management oversight than we probably feel like we've had to give in the past on some fundamental things. Leading by example will be a key point to this. For your employees' safety, another key element here, they need, what the best practices talk to is have your employees run their own health check prior to coming into work. If they don't pass, and I actually have gotten approval from Paychex, who's our payroll company, who has a wonderful HR function. They ran it past their legal team and concluded here's a log, a procedure and a log sheet that we'll be publishing out onto these online resources this week for you. A series of questions that the employees ought to do a self-test before they come into work. And then at arrival, before they clock in, a manager or supervisor is giving them basically an interview on, are you exhibiting any of the following symptoms, like fever, trouble with breathing, nausea, sore throat, etc. And if they answer yes to any of those questions, the best practices say, and this is us mimicking CDC, say you should send them home. You know, don't have them around, because although they may just be suffering from food poisoning, it might not be. And there's no sense introducing an issue into your business and for your own staff, as well as for your guests, of course. Communicate with your guests. And I think, you know, Sam, you're living it, because the fort's been open for a while and you've seen some challenges with guests. You can't over communicate with your guests. That reservation time on your website, on your Facebook page, or whatever you use, explain what you're doing and explain what you need them to do. So at reservation time, talk to them about the same thing. So specifically, here are the rules around social distancing. Here are the rules around face covering. So they absolutely understand what's going to be expected of them. Prior to arrival, if you do guest outreach before they get here to confirm reservations, say it again. And obviously when they're checking in, remind them of what the current guidelines are, and they could move. But today, for example, if you're inside and in a public space, you need to have a face covering on for your own safety, as the guest safety, as well as the rest of the property. If they're out in public and outdoors, they don't need to have a face covering, but they have to have a face cover in their possession, and they have to use it if they cannot maintain a social distancing of 6 feet. Gina and I were on a call this morning. The county's very, very, very very concerned about this in our community. They're noticing way too many people out and about, too close together. In some cases, candidly, there's some belligerent behavior that all this stuff doesn't apply to me. It's all BS. Well, yeah, right up until if we see an uptick in problems, we could be sent back into this yellow state, and then God, you know, forbid we get back into red, because then we'll be done for the tourism season. And obviously is a real worry, I think, for everyone on this call. So communicate is absolutely critical. Dave mentioned the Facebook page as a key point from today so far. It's there for your purpose. It's not a public board for you to vent on. Honestly, use it the way it was designed. It's there to connect you better to the other businesses in the area that are going through the same stuff you are. So it's a great Q&A page. It's a great, hey, I ran into this. Here's been my experience. I ran out of gloves. Can anyone help me? You know, those kind of things are what that is all about. If you think we need to do more, throw it in there. We're watching it every day. Sarah Mannix put that together. I spoke with her yesterday. She is on that thing. Something pops and she's looking at it multiple times a day. So all really good effort here. So those tools are in place, and what's on the screen right now with regard to online resources, these are some of the links that exist out there that you're going to find in our online library that is ready to go. Sarah Mannix again put that together. You're going to see two sides to things here. Our Facebook page is business only. It's intended for us to have a private space to work. You can invite people, but you know, keep it in the community of business folks that are working on the same problems that you're working on. There's a public side, on the library resources. There's going to be a private side of that'll either be draft documents or more details. There'll also be a public side that anyone can go look at to see what's happening in Lake George. So all this is coming together pretty quick. On the current status with what's going on in the community, communications is a huge effort. Gina's on that along with Amanda, who are on this call. Sarah's heavily involved, Sarah Mannix. Mike Biddle and Amanda at the ARCC. They're all working together with Mark Behan, who's volunteering his time from Behan Communications to coordinate our messaging across all segments, whether it's the county, the businesses, or the like, and along with Don Lehman and Joanne Conley in the county building to make sure we have a consistent message. The big message here, big point here, everyone, is we have to be saying the same things, or we're going to end up confusing everyone, including our guests, on what's happening and where we are. So a lot of work going on there. Here's the ask for you. You can all provide source information to what the communication team should be hearing about, worrying about, and using as information to relay on to our stakeholders. Stakeholders are the businesses, stakeholders are the county, stakeholders are residents, and stakeholders are our guests. And obviously our employees are part of the community. So those are all the stakeholders here with a common theme, but sometimes different messaging. All that's work is going on right now. So if you think there's something that's not being messaged, reach out to Gina or Amanda, I would say on this call, and they will make sure that that information gets into the hopper that can be used and digested by the rest of the Create messaging team, okay? Hot topics that are going on. I know there can be a lot of frustration and confusion here because there's a lot of uncertainty and some things honestly don't even make sense, but they're working very hard with the state on how to move things forward. And you've seen some progress there. RV parks are open. Before they weren't, now at least they're open in part. Tents are still offline. They're working on it. I believe it came out, but it will happen. Marinas are opening up, as you probably are aware, and the ability to rent a boat is going to become real here. If it's not out today, it's expected in the next couple days. And all that's happening because there's been effort behind the scenes through the business community here, pushing information into the county with these are hotspots that you need to work on. Misty, you asked a question about outdoor seating. That was a big topic today. Today it's not allowed. Businesses are fouling on that. That's going to be a problem. You might become best friends with the sheriff if you think it doesn't apply to you. They're going to start to look around to enforce this because today it's not allowed. Outdoor seating, take out food to your own outdoor seating, today is not okay. We raised that question Monday with the county. Why can't we? It's a reasonable thing to do. They heard it. It's been on the 2 p.m. calls on Tuesday and was on the call again today. Ryan Moore said he was reintroducing it again. And, we hope we can bring that one forward in the next couple of days if we're lucky before the holiday to allow guests to take out from you, but go outside, socially distanced table spacing, clean and sanitize table areas and the like. No service, but they can buy it from you, walk outside, sit down and eat. And then, garbage and all that other stuff's will be a lot simpler. So hopefully that's moving forward. If you have other topics that we need to advance, bring them up. We'll get them into the queue for the county. They've been very receptive on this. So all good stuff, as we try to move forward and we try to clarify, okay? So Amanda and Gina, over to you on the Q&A. Sam, I'd ask you to handle the ones on best practices and Dave on supplies. Amanda, you want to run with it?
Sure. Yeah, we do have quite a few questions in the chat. I also wanted to mention that I did put a link for that Facebook group for business owners in the chat. So you should be able to click on that and then just ask to join. But back to the questions. Misty asked, face masks are enforced in Lake George. What happens if you don't let them in? And she also said that she had someone talking about their constitutional rights when asked to wear a mask. Any thoughts on what to do when you encounter that?
You want me to take that one, Frank? We
Sure.
encountered that this weekend, actually. We had a guest came to the front desk and he cited his constitutional rights, and he was at the desk for quite some time. Again, this is the delicate balance of handling it. And they turned it over to me, and I explained to him, that we appreciate his business greatly, and that the mask was really to protect our staff and other guests from their potential exposure to coronavirus. We would appreciate it if you'd please follow the policies of New York State. He was rebellious, offered to upgrade his room, did everything we could to keep him as a guest, and he finally conceded and stayed 2 nights with us. You're not going to get everybody like that, though, and you're going to deal with this a lot, I think. A lot of the mask was the biggest issue in those surveys. Gina, just one other thing, too. There's 23 participants on this call. If you don't mind being the lead on this, a lot of these slides and certainly the resource guide all have actual links on them. You just click on them. If you want to contact Gina, she'll forward you the PowerPoint so you have all this information, if you don't mind, Gina.
Yep. Sam, maybe we throw it out on the community page too. I'm finding that the email distributions I've been quiet on because the Facebook page is out there and it's a lot easier tool. So that there, you have a lot of great content there that I think the group would benefit from.
Good idea.
And Gina and Amanda can help with that.
Yeah, definitely. We'll definitely send this out to our membership, and we were planning to have a video recording of this as well, if anyone needs to refer back to it. But we do have a few more questions in the chat. This one is from Chandler Atkins. Besides having my property COVID manual, do I need to submit anything to anyone?
Sam, I can run with that. The county, the ask from Ryan Moore has been every property should have documented material. Now, since then, Department of Health has published a document that is virus related. It came as a PDF. Gina and Amanda have it. It was converted from a PDF to a Word document, so you can operate it in Word if you prefer. But the analogy here is, if you haven't seen it, it's a lot like any pool plans or water plans you might have, or lost guest plans and things like that. So it's actually, I answered it based on the best practices that we've outlined, and I made that the prototype for our 4 businesses, and literally it's a copy and paste, change the property name, and it works. But you should have that on file. I would recommend you put together a book. You probably already have one for Department of Health for anything you have around their things that they come to check you out on. I would add a section to that around the virus. You'd need their completed form. I would include either our Word document that we gave you on best practices and/or the PowerPoint we've reviewed. And of course, Sam's has drilled into a little bit deeper detail. Just have that on file so you can evidence to them, hey, I'm here, we're ready, we're doing these things. And if you are following the best practices, that draft or, document, it gives you a running start for you to be able to do that. But otherwise, no. The answer specifically is, do you have to submit anything to the county or anything? No, but you should have written documentation in your possession. At the minimum, it's that DOH form.
And interestingly, Glens Falls just came out with, I think they are requiring their businesses to submit something to the fire department. They have like a reopening letter and a reopening form. Yeah, but I haven't heard of any other municipality requiring that at this point.
Yeah. Okay, I haven't heard that. So that's interesting. And I haven't heard anything from Lake George Town or Village either.
Okay, great, thank you. Chandler also asked, what is the benchmark for sanitizing blankets and comforters?
Can we take that one, Frank?
Nope, it's you, Sam. That's all yours, man.
Mhm.
Okay, so Chandler, let me tell you what the fort's doing, and I've probably seen it on TV. We're doing little things over the top. We have been studying and like all of you, have been following the coronavirus and every detail about it. The first thing to realize is it's a very fragile virus, and just time will kill the virus. If you wait 24 hours with addressing anything, most of the virus will be gone. The half-life, according to the White House briefings, the half-life of the coronavirus is 6 hours, unless you put it in sunlight, and then the half-life is 2 minutes. Sunlight, heat and humidity will kill the virus. So normal time waiting will kill the virus. Washing in a hot temperature will kill the virus. We go one extra step in all of our maid's closet. We introduced UVC as just an extra layer of protection. But your standard protocol of stripping the beds and washing after every single guest will be enough to take care of the coronavirus.
Great, thank you. Let's see. Another question here, is it required for all employees / workers / owners to be tested while working in this field?
It's not required to be tested. What the best practices, and the CDC recommends that outline that I mentioned earlier, which is employees self-check prior to coming into work to save them the trip and reduce the property risk, and then a supervised interview, if you will, for lack of a better term, with regard to their current health status. My messaging to our teams has been, look, no heroic effort here. There's some employees that, you know, are going to work through everything because that's just how they're built. You know, under normal conditions, we probably, you know, value that. Here, you know, we need to be careful, though. In particular, you know, those people that work for you that have worked through illnesses, and you know, best to have them stay home for a day, make sure it's okay.
Definitely.
There is one property that I've heard from, I think this is a good recommendation, that says if the employee's not able to work on day 1, they stay home. If they're not able to work on day 2, they stay home. If they're not able to work on day 3, then that property, and we've adopted it on ours, requires a doctor's note to return back to work, which is probably a good standing practice under normal conditions anyway, everyone.
Yeah, that sounds like good advice. Here we have another question. If a guest arrives with a temperature exceeding 100.4 Fahrenheit, what is our legal responsibility in managing the situation?
Sam, or do you want to go?
Is that the assumption that you're taking the temperature if you're identifying 100.4? Because that is the CDC guidelines, is 100.4. Legally, what is your legal obligation? You own your properties. The best practices is if you notice them having a fever, you would recommend to them that they seek medical attention, that their temperature is elevated. I guess we could ask the question again. I'm sorry, Amanda.
I guess they would just like to know, if somebody shows up with that 100.4 Fahrenheit temperature, what are they legally required to do if that happens and they, you know, find out that a guest has a fever?
Well, a guest question, Sam, not an employee.
Yeah, I mean, legally, you fall under temporary residence, and you can't discriminate because of race, color, creed, religion, that whole thing. I'm not sure, I'm not a lawyer. I don't want to give legal advice, but I don't think you can legally turn them away because they have a temperature. You can make recommendations, you can protect your staff, you can set policies in place, but I don't know if you can say because you have a fever, you cannot come stay with our hotel. Frank, am I right on that?
Yeah, that is, the CDC is you are, Sam. The CDC recommends that, not different than any employee, you know, we probably need a strong recommendation, I guess would be my words, to that guest, that given your current health condition and the current climate, if you will, that a test is needed, and you know, they should seek that help, you know, just to be sure. And it's for their safety. You know, they're probably not traveling alone, right? So what I've found that's been helpful is the more you make the discussion about the guest and their safety, the more it resonates with them. If you talk to them about everybody else's safety, you know, some guests aren't going to care. But if it's about them, so, you know, geez, we're sorry to hear that. What can we do to help you? Keeping them in quarantine, for example, please stay in your room, makes sense. You know, helping them with where can I go to seek medical attention is a good reference guide. It's honestly something we should probably put together, so you've got a quick hit list for where to send folks for medical help, whether it be the Warrensburg Center or to the hospital or not. I would probably send them someplace before the hospital, to be honest with you, saving the hospital for conditions that are more serious than just a first blush at a temperature, which could have been, in my earlier example, could have been food poisoning. And so for their safety, you know, we'd ask you to stay in your room. We're happy to help you any way we can, and then progress it that way. I think a fair, to complete that answer, that's something we should run to the county with and ask them, what would you like us to do? If it's an employee, though, to be clear, the answer there is if they're running a temperature, if you're taking temperatures and you discover that their temperature is exceeding 100.4, then the CDC says it's now your obligation as the employer to send the employee home, immediately home. If you're unable to do that for whatever reason, you need to have thought through, where am I going to quarantine that employee to keep them isolated with regards to the rest of your staff and your guests. If this condition occurs during a shift, then you should make sure you're tracing who they were working with and around, and then go and disinfect the work areas that they've been working in. If you check the CDC guidelines, that they'll point you to that, and I believe it's in our best practices document.
I think we should get phone numbers, Frank, and I would probably direct them to the Warren County Health Department for testing.
Yeah.
And if they get the green light, come on back.
Yeah. And with that, everyone, reaching out to the county health services team. Janelle Jones is there. I've mentioned her name before, I think, on other calls. She is a rock star. She knows her stuff. I've had her interface with our guests because early on, we required them to have a discussion with Janelle, and she was awesome. Her guest orientation is terrific. She's knows her stuff. She hangs up satisfied, everything's okay, and the guest hangs up thinking, a telephone call, of course, hangs up feeling pretty good that, geez, I came to Warren County and they really care about me.
That's great. All right, I think that covers all of the questions in the chat.
Yeah, Misty just threw in one, Amanda. Wouldn't the CDC back you up if you decline the guest? I don't know if it's the CDC or not, but it is your business. And, you know, we haven't crossed the hurdle yet, but, you know, we haven't had, actually, our guests have been wonderful. They've been very understanding. They're happy to be here and not staring across a narrow street at another 6 or 8 story apartment building or whatever. So that, you know, they're happy to be here. But our message is, and this goes back to the point, everyone, about over communicate to your guests. These are the expectations when you're here. You know, if you're not willing to wear a face covering, that's okay. You just can't stay here. Easy to say if you're not in a chain business. You know, Sam in Best Western or Dave in the Country Inn and Suites, you know, any Marriott guest, probably you'll have something to say about that. But for most of the folks that are on this call, it is your business and it is your mortgage and it is all your stuff. And, you know, if you have guests that you aren't happy with because they're disturbing others or whatever, you probably deal with them, give them their money back and move them on.
And then there was another question here about whether restaurants and other should be taking the names of people who come to their business. Is that legal?
It's not required to do that. That ties into the tracing question. The county does. You've seen all this news lately about the tracers that are needed in the region. Warren County, and this goes back to Janelle and her team, they rocked it. They've provided, part of the reason why the region's green is Warren County is overperforming. They have more tracers by far than what we need. I think we need 29 or something. We probably have 50 or 60. And so that's all helping the region move to these green conditions. The expectation is going to be if they reach out, with an employee, you're going to have to be able to know who they worked with. That's usually pretty easy because it ties to your payroll or your scheduling tool. And with regard to guests, the answer specifically is no, you don't have to have them, but every property will have some idea of who's been there if for no other reason you have credit card records. In many cases, a hotel would, a little different for Misty at sports. But you did get a name and a credit card when they paid for their meal, of course, if they paid by credit card.
Hey Gina, can you stop sharing the PowerPoint for a minute? So I want to share our contact tracing log that we use on a daily basis. Hopefully I did this right. I'm not familiar with Zoom. Can everybody see that?
Mm-hmm.
The contact tracing log? Yes.
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 Okay. So this is one that we use at the fort every day for our staff. It's paid some big dividends for it. So on the left side, we have any employee that you come in contact with closer than 6 feet, 10 seconds, 60 seconds, if they cough or sneeze. And on the right side is any guest. There's multiple forms, obviously, if you're working the front desk. But when we went through our seminars and trained people on this, these forms are such a pain to use that we found that people purposely didn't invade that 6-foot radius, so they didn't have to fill out the form. So it kind of served two functions.
Love it.
And I'll be happy, anybody wants, Gina, you don't be in the front, or Frank, if I know how to use that Facebook, I'll put this up there so people can use it.
Yeah, Amanda can push it over there for you, Sam.
Okay.
I don't know how to do it. She does.
Beautiful.
Yeah, that would be great to share. All right, so I know we wanted to keep this to an hour. It's a few minutes after 5, so I guess we're all set for tonight. Any other closing words?
Final comments.
I would like to thank Sam and Frank and David for all the work they did to pull this together, Gina and so forth. That's been very helpful for those of us out in the community. Thank you.
As I
Great.
said, folks, just before we exit the call, if your input's really important here. So, we've solicited a few times for feedback. Honestly, we don't get a lot. So, but give it some thought, reach out. You've got the Facebook page. You all have our emails because they've been running around for a while. And we'll try to work it into the mix here and get you answers. Rather than living with fear, uncertainty, and doubt, as they say. And towards that end, be aware, and this actually, Gina and Amanda came up with this idea, that they're working on building basically a seal of approval, for lack of a better term, that if you endorse the best practices, there's a development effort going on to build a widget that you can put onto your website or Facebook page or the like that will let you advertise, I'm following the best practices in Warren County, the Lake George area, Lake George region, however it's flagged, to give your property a little bit of a distinction relative to others. In order to get the codes that it's necessary to put that seal on your site, you're going to have to say, I endorse those practices, which I think everybody's agreed to do it, but I don't have a stack of 200 emails either that says, yeah, we're all on board. So, hopefully this will motivate some good stuff, and will make everybody safer as we move along here.
That's a great idea, Frank.
Thank you, everybody, for coming. This is obviously our first one. I'm not sure how smooth it went, but the purpose was to get everybody together so we have one unified voice from Warren County, that we are doing everything possible to make this a safe environment for you to come vacation. We welcome you and your families, and we will take care of you. And we're doing at least this basement of best practices. And Frank and I and all of us have talked. We have many challenges ahead of us. Who knows how this summer is going to come out to play, and who knows the levels that we're going to hold. We may be facing a lot of things. And I think if we come together in this format as a community, we can solve a lot of these problems.
Totally agree. Yeah, island thinking here is a little risky right now, folks. Lean on your neighbors. and lean on the group. You know, we can solve this and come through it nice and clean and not lose our guests, and probably introduce some new ones to the area. You know, people in the Poconos aren't going to probably want to go to the Jersey Shore. And if you live in Pennsylvania, which I did, that's where you go on vacation. Everybody goes to the shore, period. I mean, it's like, Jesus, there's nowhere else on the planet. And that's just, that's been their tradition. Just like for us, we have so many guests that their traditions to come here. That group's not far away, and they have an opportunity. Those travelers have an opportunity to choose us if we're perceived to be a safe area. If obviously our beauty and all that's there, but we have a chance to get ahead too if we do it well. All right, Gina and Amanda, thanks for pulling this together. Dave and Sam, great work. Obviously you've been doing it for weeks and weeks, and appreciate you taking an hour today to share that work with everyone.
Thank you, everyone.
Bye,
Yeah,
everyone.
thank
Have a
you.
great day.
Bye-bye.
Bye, guys.
Thanks for all your hard work.